Okay, welcome back to the session 23. In the last session, we talked about the fame and what it appears to be and what eventually would turn out to be, suggesting what could actually be. And that was basically the analogies that we used to playwrights the actual historical figures actually existed in the ancient Chinese history. Um, in this session, I want to give you another analogy, uh, not a playwright, but of I guess, one time the best uh, connoisseur and the best artist, both for calligraphy and for the, I guess, landscape genre ink brush painting. And he was the first one actually systematically put together the Chinese ink brush painting art theories, and also the, sorted the Chinese art history pretty well. So he actually had a lot of contributions for the Chinese art history. If you look at it today, that is just something I don't think anybody could dispute. But having achieved that kind of reputation at the top, all the way at the top, probably nobody could ever top him for all that he contributed. Remember what the Chinese always say: your arts reflect yourself. Remember, for the Chinese elite arts, the artworks are nothing but the display of the state of mind as the result of your self-purifying and self-improvement studies, go. There was nothing to decorate about, your house or anything. It's really just, it's supposed to be convincing enough. So when the fellow Chinese elites take a look at your art of calligraphy or landscape genre ink brush painting, they are supposed to know how well you are well above the others. On top of all this kung fu, time span on the techniques for the solid foundations, you are supposed to be philosophically reaching a certain level so that you can become way, better ahead of your contemporaries or peers. That's a theory, right? Well, so for the people, generation behind his times, you look at it, the artworks of this gentleman. Eventually, when he retired back into his hometown, he retired from the ranking position equivalent to the vice minister of the contemporary cabinet today, right? So his hometown was a little place. The head of the local administration was several ranks lower than himself. In other words, he outranked all the local government officers. So they pretty much just, I guess, show their respect for this guy, not only for his artistic talent and fame, but also his actual court, royal court ranking position, even though he was retired. So when we look at it, the artworks he left behind in his name is Dong Qichang. Dong Qichang, very big name. Almost everybody knows about him, even for the contemporary Chinese, because when you look at his calligraphy artworks, his landscape genre ink brush painting artworks, it is just impeccable, right? But then if you really dig the dirt, going beyond his reputation, you will find this guy was absolutely a man that is, I guess, this I guess put it in a way, this guy had absolutely no virtue whatsoever. That you know, forget about a gentleman, just a human being. The guy was a bully, was evil. Um, Even at age 60, he still would, on any day, walk into any household in his neighborhood of his hometown and, force against any woman that he looked and liked, for sex. He raped them in open, broad daylight. And his son was helping him too all the time. And that happened again and again and again. Eventually, to the point, everyone in his hometown just, they got all fed up. They couldn't, take it anymore. So hundreds came and basically just, burn his house down. And he had absolutely nothing left. Okay, so that was the reputation, the fame he achieved. And then there's another story, and this one has nothing to do with the artistic. It was also in the later period of the Ming Empire. There was a father and son. They had they achieved basically the position only below the emperor himself, but then they were above everyone else in the country throughout the empire. And the two basically did a lot of evil things, and they were basically forming the partisan forces to manipulate the court to their own advantages, which was, of course, illegal. Only the emperor did not know, because he was so good. He could manipulate the emperor and, of course, the whole court. And they, I guess, accumulated a massive fortune, and they built a great, secondary residence in Beijing. And then what happened? At the age 81, the guy was outpowered right after his son was sentenced to death by the emperor. And then he was, of course, expelled out of that great secondary residence. And eventually he died in streets at age 82 or something like that. Of course, poor. He had to beg for food. And that was basically, he was so successful managing his political career in the royal court of Ming Empire, and nobody, came close enough to where he was. But eventually he died miserably, right? So with all that, big fortune, the big mansion, the big secondary residence and all that, did absolutely no good for him when he, passed away. He had absolutely nothing left before he went. So this pretty much tells us about the reputation and why the reputation or fame or fortune, and why the Taoism teaching tell us, do not chase after the vanity, because at the end you will find it's nothing but a smoke. So what does it really matter, right? What appears to be as versus what it actually is, what does matter? What can you do to contribute to this world? Remember that we always repeat it. You will do what you can to help out. And as you reach out to the entire world, when you are in the position, and before you reach that position, what you could do to help the world is basically to improve yourself, purify yourself, so that you do not turn out as a trash to burden the society where you are, right? That's something least you can do. So that was the virtue of the Chinese elite, and that's why they were all practicing all the different kinds of arts, supposedly to as the means of the self-purifying and self-improvement studies. Except for in that case, we just mentioned Dong Qichang. Apparently, he defied that rule, and but that doesn't mean the rest of us could not try. And personally, I, for one, I still do believe that we can do our own little teeny tiny bit to help wherever wherever we could, and for that, you don't have nothing to regret. You do what you can, and by the time you kick the bucket, you did what you can, right? On one hand, you want to do what you want to do. On the other hand, you also want to do what is meaningful for others, where you could actually contribute. It sounds like a lecture, but really, if you think about it, what is the meaning of life? I don't know if you can find any other meanings of life that you still think holds true at the last moment of your life. But this one, I don't see how could you fail. So anyway, this is just a suggestion, and this is going to be probably the shortest session throughout the entire series to the day. So until next session, ciao.